Today I'm going to talk about my experiences of going to a business conference. If you want to hear about all the things that I learned, the speakers, and what the whole experience was like, stay tuned. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help health, life and spiritual coaches get more clients, generate more income so they can live their most aligned life. And today on the show, I'm talking all about what I learned when I went to Atomicon, which is a big business conference. It's kind of targeted at small online businesses, and it's a fantastic conference that happens annually now, pretty much since the pandemic. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that I learned and just about the general experience of going to an event like this, because I know for some of you guys who are listening, perhaps you've never been to an event like this before, and maybe you're wondering a little bit about what it's like, what to expect, particularly if perhaps like me, you're a little bit more on the introverted side. So I'm going to dive into all of that. So what I'm going to try and do in this episode of the show is just share a few of the key takeaways that I got that I think are really helpful, that hopefully you will find useful as well, so that they help you as well. So like I say, Atomicon is this event. It's also, as well as being an in-person event, it's also online as well, so they live stream all of their sessions, and it's held in my hometown basically of Newcastle Gateshead, which is really exciting. And I don't live far from there now. I'm about a 20-minute drive out of Gateshead now, so it's very, very close to me. I've literally got no excuse not to go. It's really, really close. And I went to Atomicon in 2019 and had a great time. I went with my really good friend Catherine, and we had an awesome time, learnt loads, and it was fantastic. And I just loved being with people and the energy of being with people who get the whole running an online business thing, because let's face it, not everyone gets that at all. So I had a really great experience back in 2019, and I was really excited to go this year, and it didn't disappoint. So let's get into what I learned at Atomicon and the speakers that I saw and just some of the key takeaways from that event. So the event is ran by two guys called Andrew and Pete. They live up in Newcastle. They're not from Newcastle, I don't think, but they live locally. Really lovely guys. I've met them in person. I've been to events with them where I've, sat with them in person. They're just really lovely. Younger lads, just really down to earth. And, I really want to cheerlead them for doing so well, because they're just two normal lads, which is really lovely, and they've done fantastically well with Atomicon. They did the opening talk, and their talks are always really entertaining, they're always really funny, and again, this is something that I think we don't see a lot of sometimes in this space, so it was just really fun to listen to them talk. They were speaking about how to make sales less scary, basically. So they give some really, really good tips. A lot of it was really around pre-qualifying leads. And I say leads because that's the terms that they use. Leads is not the kind of term that I use. I think it's a bit dehumanizing. But they talked about how to pre-qualify people and really talked about how sales is easier if you know that you are speaking to people who actually would benefit from, are the right people for your offer. That is going to make sales calls, discovery calls for us coaches a lot easier. And they gave some really, really good tips about that in a very funny way. As part of that, they talked about creating hand-raising content, which is not a new concept, but something that is quite interesting. It was really interesting hearing them talk about. And in fact, it's something I'm going to do a training on for the Content Marketing for Coaches Club, if anyone's interested. And for some reason, whenever I hear hand-raising content, I just think of Hellraiser. But yeah, hand raiser content. Basically, content that gets people to kind of raise their hands and say, hey, I'm interested. So that was really interesting. And what they essentially said was that if you can get people to tick three key boxes, then they are, the best people to be getting onto sales calls, which is none of this is rocket science. And that's a bit of a theme that will come up, but kind of seeing it laid out in that way was really useful. So they talked about, that they fit your ideal client avatar, the people, generally speaking, that you want to work with, that they have the problem that you solve with your particular offer, and that they have investment intent. And they shared some specific ways that you can learn this or understand this about people in your audience. So that was really interesting. I was basically, throughout the whole of this, I was like taking photos of the slides on the screen to refer back to. So that was really, really awesome. They shared some really good stuff, really, really good fun, and that was brilliant. And then we had Joe Wicks. So for anyone who's not in the UK and doesn't know Joe Wicks is a very, very, very famous personal trainer here. He did PE with Joe on YouTube in the pandemic. Like, he was getting up every morning, every week and doing like a little workout for kids and stuff. He's just, to be fair, like, I'd heard him speak on podcasts and I was kind of like a bit ambivalent about him. Like, yeah, he seems like a nice guy. It's fine, But hearing him speak, he was just, what a lovely, lovely guy. Like, you want to be best mates with him. He's just lush. He's just so lovely. And he came across so humble and genuine and authentic. He was just brilliant. And for me, he was the standout. He didn't do like a presentation, but Andrew and Pete interviewed him, and then he took questions from the audience. And hearing him talk about the business side of things, because obviously you would rarely hear him talk about this. So actually hearing him talk about how he took his personal training business from him handing out leaflets in a train station to a multi-million-pound business, that was really, really interesting. One of the things that he was saying was that he never went into his business to have £1 million business. Like, that was never his vision. He went into his business because he wanted to help people. And that's always been his driving force, is that he wants to help people. And I thought that was really interesting. A lot of us, we go into business, we think about our businesses in terms of like our income levels, what it is that we want to do. And actually he's shown that going in there and just having that really, and I think he kind of admitted this, almost obsession with helping people, that is actually what can drive things forward. And that might be a more effective driver necessarily than thinking, hey, I want to build £1 million business. So I thought that was really, really interesting that he shared that. He talked a bit about the development of his app. So he kind of started off as a personal trainer doing sessions in person. And then as his social media started to grow, so he was, doing the videos, the recipe videos and stuff on social media, and he admits that he hit social media at that, I was talking about this, I think, in a previous episode of the show, but at like the golden, actually, maybe it wasn't an episode of the show, I think it was maybe my social research training, but I was talking about this, is that, the golden age of social media is over. Like, the golden age of you being able to set up an Instagram account and instantly get followers, it's done, that is gone. That's probably not going to come back. And he was very clear that, even when he got going at the height of social media, that golden age of social media, he still sent like 20,000 tweets before he made a penny from social media. Like, he still spent 6 months before he made anything. Like, he still put in a lot of work. And I thought that was a really good reminder because, again, a lot of us, sometimes it's easy to think, oh, I'll just do this and, instantly I'll have clients and I'll have customers. I mean, I don't think many of you guys listening to this think this, but I think some people do think that it's that easy, and it's, even back then, it wasn't that easy. So I think him just sharing that was really powerful. He talked about how once his social media started to take off, he gave his in-person personal training stuff to another PT that he knew and let him run it. And I think he had like 50 clients. It was a really thriving personal training business. But once his social media took off, he developed an online product. He says it was really like lo-fi. It was using like Excel spreadsheets to populate calories and all this kind of stuff. And then developed the app with an outside app development agency, and then brought all of that development in-house. And he's now got a team of 30 people working for his business. And it's just all really fascinating stuff. I think to hear about the ins and outs of this kind of business is rare. So to have that opportunity was really interesting. And like I say, I think his genuineness, he was very honest about the relationship that he has with social media, and his phone might not be the healthiest. He still answers, like, personally will answer DMs on Instagram, and I think the fact that he keeps that personal touch with his people, there's a lot of talk, certainly in the coaching industry, about, you bring in, and there was a term for it that I did learn at Atomicon, I can't remember what it was called now, appointment bookers. That you can bring in appointment bookers, you can bring in people to run your social media, all this kind of stuff. And actually, I think listening to Joe, it really solidified why I would never do that, because for me, I wouldn't feel aligned working with a business that was doing that. Like, certainly not like a coaching business that was doing that. It just wouldn't feel good to me, and therefore I wouldn't do it, because I think, if you can still have that connection with your people in some way, shape or form, obviously with healthy boundaries and stuff that I think Joe is working on, that can actually be really profound and can really make a big difference. So it was just fascinating listening to him talk. He was just really genuine, really sweet and lovely. He was fabulous, basically. So I very much enjoyed Joe Wicks. He was awesome. And then the next speaker on the main stage was Rob and Kennedy. I wasn't sure what to expect with these guys. They're all about email marketing. They were very funny, very entertaining, did a really good entertaining kind of, show, really. I mean, a lot of these people, it's almost like a show, and talked about email marketing, and I got some good takeaways from their stuff. At one point they were asking people, like, what does your business do? And people were shouting out all sorts of different things, and they were like, no, your business doesn't do that. Your business makes a profit. That's what it's there for. Like, that's what you're there for, is your business is to make a profit. And they were like, oh, this is a hard truth for some people to take, blah, blah, blah. And it felt like a little bit like shock tactics, but I was a bit like, really? I don't actually think that's the case. I think there's a lot of people where, yes, profit is important, because without that, we don't necessarily have a business. But, it kind of really jarred a little bit actually with what Joe had been saying, which was, hey, I didn't set up my business to make shit tons of money, to make massive profit. I set up my business to help people. That was what drove him forward. If he had just focused on profit, I don't know if he'd be where he was now at all, actually. I just don't think he would be where he is right now if he'd focused on profit. So it was quite interesting, some of these contradictions between some of the speakers. But obviously that's just because not everyone teaches business in the same way or has the same experience of business. But I thought that was quite interesting. So they were talking about that. Some takeaways from their talk, like I said, they're email people. They talk all about email marketing. They were talking about how there's 3 kinds of subscribers. You've got subscribers, you've got customers, and you've got lost customers. And basically what they were saying in terms of, having a thriving list, doing your email marketing well, you've got 3 key things that you need to fight against, and that's fatigue, irrelevance, and time. So there was those 3 key things that, basically once people have been on your list for a long time and they haven't bought from you, you've lost them. If you become irrelevant, they're not interested. If they just become sick of your emails, they just kind of tune out of them. If your emails become boring. So I thought that was really interesting way to think about things. And then basically the main takeaway from their talk was to convert people into customers as soon as possible and keep them in that customer category as long as possible. So if they're a subscriber, you want to convert them into customers. If they're a lost customer, you want to convert them back into a customer. So kind of interesting. There's definitely ways that I could apply that in my business in a way that feels aligned for me. It was an interesting way of thinking about something. And, I'll talk about in terms of like themes of the event. I think there wasn't anything that was majorly new for me, which was quite affirming that I'm not missing massive important bits of online business stuff. But what I did notice was that it was the way people were saying it, like slotted it into my head in a different way. And sometimes that's all we need. So that was really interesting. And then after them, there was a break, and then we went into breakout sessions. So I attended several breakout sessions that kind of were in between the main talks and lunch and things like that. So I saw Melissa Love, who I'd never heard of. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't heard of any of these speakers before, I should say, apart from like Andrew and Pete and Joe Wicks. And they did actually have Rachel Rogers as the keynote, but she pulled out very, very much last minute. And that was all a bit weird, just to say. It was all a bit weird. But anyway, she pulled out last minute and was replaced by a guy called Christo. Didn't know any of these people whatsoever. Danny Wallace I knew, who I did go and see, but I didn't know anyone. So, the speakers weren't a massive pull for me necessarily. I just knew that I would learn stuff for them, because if Andrew and Pete were picking them, they'd be good. So anyway, the breakout sessions, I went to see Melissa Love. Her talk was about humanizing your funnels, and again it was quite like she shared a lot of these people give lots of value, which is amazing. She shared like an exact kind of like behind the scenes breakdown of what a funnel looks like and what it looks like across organic and social and paid, and that was really, really helpful and interesting to see that. She talked about using video and her sales processes, something that I've talked about before, in fact, on the show. Right at the very start of the Wholehearted Business show, I've got an episode where I talk about using video in your business outside of like your content marketing, basically. But it was all good reminders for me to revisit that and just to make sure that I'm bedding that into what it is that I do. Then I went to see a guy called Chris James. He was really good fun. It was a lot about content that converts. He was talking about creating content that gets people into the DMs and then selling to them in the DMs. Now, again, this is something that has never felt very aligned for me, to be honest. The whole idea of selling DMs is just a total turn off. And I honestly think that most of us, like certainly my people who are, I'm business to business, you can smell that bullshit a mile off. Like someone like slides into your DMs with some bullshit, like you can smell that shit a mile off and you're not going to touch it. Like I'm not going to touch it. But just from a point of view of listening to how he broke it down, it was quite interesting. Not something that I would personally do, or certainly wouldn't do it in that way. Like I would, like if someone was having a genuine conversation with me in DMs, I would absolutely, and I had something to help them, I would absolutely talk about it. It was good to get the breakdown of what it all looks like, basically, and why people do it. And also a breakdown of those posts like, I want to help 5 women who want to lose weight and get toned up to do it. Like, and it broke down what those posts are like, and I still fucking hate them. So so that's what I learned from that one, guys. I still dislike all that shit, but it was interesting to like get underneath what that looks like, basically, from that point of view. And then I saw a woman called Nikki Hursford. Her talk was about scaling the business. And that, to be fair, she was lovely, but she was the main talk I was a little bit disappointed with, because the main premise of her talk was about getting a team. It was basically about scaling through having a team, and it just didn't feel relevant. She even at one point said, like, you know, if you don't have a team, you don't have a business, you just have a job. And I was like, well, I fucking disagree with that shit for a start. I don't think that's true. So that kind of was just like, no, that doesn't resonate for me at all. I totally get what she was saying and where she was coming from. And I think for some people that would have been a really interesting talk. But it was very one-dimensional, and it was very much around just having a team. Any of you guys will know when I've spoken about scaling, it's very much not just about having a team. It's about all sorts of other things. And outsourcing and bringing in team members and stuff can be part of that. But I think certainly in my experience and for a lot of my clients, that is not where we want to take our business. And when you're a coach, that's very, very difficult to do in some ways anyway. So that was quite interesting, that one, but it just didn't particularly resonate. But again, like, even though I'm not necessarily learning anything helpful, just seeing what other people are doing and actually being like, no, that's not for me, you know, or understanding what other people are doing in more depth so that I can even more firmly say that is not for me. And then I saw Danny Wallace. So I've seen Danny before at another event, and she's just really good fun. You know, she comes on, it's like singing queen. She's just got a massive personality, and hers is all about self-sabotage. And I think there was a couple of talks about kind of like mindset-y stuff, but I only went to this one that was on this kind of topic. And she's just always great. She's entertaining. She's funny. She's down to earth. You know, and the main thing that I took away from Danny was that, you know, she had like a group of women with her, this community of women who were there, not only to support her, I'm sure, to also enjoy the event, but to support her. And just seeing how she's created that, I think was really, really interesting. And, you know, she's created that based around what she stands for. And I think that was just really interesting and really got me thinking about my business and what do I stand for? Why do people want to be part of my world and not necessarily other people's worlds? Like, what is it about me? What is it about the way that I do things? Like, that was really interesting. I really took that away from Danny more than what she was saying about self-sabotage, which was still very interesting and relevant. I thought what was super helpful from her was seeing actually that she's got this community of people around her that absolutely love her and that would probably buy anything she put out there, you know. That was a really interesting takeaway from her. And then the final breakout session was with a woman called Leah Turner, and it was on LinkedIn. So I chose to go to this one because I will tell any of my clients, like, LinkedIn is the one thing, you know, probably TikTok as well. I don't know a whole heap about LinkedIn. I know enough, but I don't know it in depth. I don't know it like I know Instagram or Facebook or Pinterest, certainly. So I was kind of interested to learn more about it. She didn't actually cover a lot of the strategic ins and outs of LinkedIn, but what she did cover was about just showing up authentically on there and what it takes to build connections and actually build a networking community on LinkedIn. And the thing that really stuck with me from her talk was that she said, LinkedIn is not a boardroom. It's like a coffee shop at your fave co-working space. Like, don't treat it like a boardroom. Treat it more like this. And she gave some examples of the kind of content that you might want to share and things like that. And she was just, her approach to it is different to other approaches that I've seen. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And she was awesome. She just seemed like a really lovely person as well. So I really enjoyed her talk. And then we had the keynote speaker, which was a guy called Chris Doe. So I'd never heard of Chris before. Like I say, he kind of stepped in at the last minute to replace Rachel, which was a shame. I would have liked to see Rachel. But anyway, Chris Doe stepped in and he was really good. I think partly because there was like no expectations. I think people didn't really know much about him, but he came in and he was just lovely, really quiet, kind of like understated guy, but just dropped like knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb. So much value that he gave. Like, he just gave loads of great stuff. And his talk was really a lot about, again, certainly the talks that I chose to go to, the themes tended to be around sales, funnels, that kind of thing, which was quite interesting. But he talked a bit about sales and just some of the stuff that he dropped, like in terms of how to approach it. And again, nothing majorly new. A lot of it was really about consent-based selling, really. Although he didn't use that term, that's kind of what he was on about. He gave very specific examples of questions that you could use in sales calls, discovery calls, one of which I've already used and was fantastic. Like, it's just this awesome question. You know, he's just shared some absolute like knowledge bombs. He was really, really good. Just very quiet and understated, you know, not entertaining or showy in the same way that the guys at the start of the day had been, but just held our attention and just delivered some really awesome stuff that we could take away. So he was just fantastic. Some of the things that stick out from what he said to me, so he shared some sales conversation starters, just some questions that you can use. So I'm going to read those out. I am looking down at my phone because I'm not going to be able to list these off the top of my head. So he talked about what's on your mind, what is motivating our conversation today, what's the reason for you reaching out, what is the one thing that if solved makes everything easier, what's the real challenge for you? And I thought these are some really good, like if you get stuck in discovery calls about what questions to ask, I thought those are some good questions to get started in terms of things that you can ask people in discovery calls to kind of get them talking and talk about what it is that they're struggling with so that you can respond to that and talk about how your program might be able to help them around some of those things. So I really liked those particular questions. That was one takeaway of many takeaways from his talk. And then just to share some overall thoughts from the event and just kind of a bit about what it's like to attend these kind of events. So my overall thoughts were, I feel like I didn't necessarily learn anything new. However, what did happen was there was some things just slotted into my brain in a slightly different way. Now, they always offer an implementation session from the actual event so that you can go through all your notes and decide what it is that you want to implement. And I didn't do that, and I should have. I need to sit down and make sure that this is implemented, because this is often what happens. We learn stuff, or we go to an event like this, or we watch a training or whatever, but we don't implement. And I don't want that to happen in this case for me. So I really want to get clear on the things that I do want to implement. I can rewatch a lot of the talks. If I have the time, I can go and rewatch the recordings and just get really clear on what things I want to take away that I saw and that I want to implement in my business and make a plan to get those things implemented. So that's the thing. But like I say, nothing I would say that is majorly new, but a lot of stuff that just kind of like hit in a different way because of the way that people said it. I also feel that I wasn't excited to go and see the speakers. What I was excited to go and do was to network and actually meet people who I knew online in real life. So there was a big community from Elizabeth Goddard's group that went. I speak about Lizzie all the time, but she's my kind of go-to person. Like I say, I've met Lizzie a couple of times, met her again in Atomicon, and she's got a lovely community of people. I spent a lot of time with Michelle Rose, who was local to me, and we kind of knew each other in the circles, but kind of met a bit more through some of Lizzie's groups, and just kind of being there with people. I just find it really nice to be in spaces with people who do similar things to you. And it's, when you work for yourself like this, I have got a VA, I have got some business friends, but it's, we don't have these kind of experiences very often. And for me, this is like a big work do. Like, I don't get work parties, work do's. This was like a big work do. And it was really good fun. And, I'm quite introverted. I was on like day 29 of my cycle. I was like literally like, oh my God, this is going to be horrendous, to be honest. That's what I was thinking. But it was still really good fun. I pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I had chats with people in the queue to get in. I made some new friends, made some new connections. And it was just really good fun. And just, again, it's like, if you need a shot of energy in your business, and let's face it, June time, when you were just about getting to the summer, sometimes you just need that bit of a injection of a bit of energy and some ideas and some new things to get you outside of your comfort zone. And that's what Atomicon was for me, and I hope it will be for next year. What I found was I didn't get accommodation closer to the venue because I live quite close anyway, but that did mean that I didn't make the effort to go to the pre-party and the after-party, which I think I would have actually really enjoyed. So next year, which I've already bought my ticket for, I'm going to get accommodation in town. Even though I don't live very far away, I'm going to get accommodation in town so that it is much easier for me to attend the pre-party and after-party, because I think, first of all, they look really good fun, and I had massive FOMO from missing them this year, so I'm going to make the effort to go to them next year. And like I say, if you've never been to these events before, like, they can be a bit nerve-wracking. Buddy up with someone. When I went to my first one, I buddied up with my friend Catherine. At this one, I kind of like stuck myself onto my friend Michelle. But buddy up with someone. If you're not the kind of person who's like dead comfortable with networking and chatting to people, like, see if there's someone you can buddy up with. Buddy up with me if you want. Honestly, I'm always looking for buddies. If you decide to come, drop me a message, drop me an email, and I'll happily be a buddy for you, so you don't feel quite so, because like I'd like buddies to go with. It was a bit nerve-wracking walking into the building on my own. Like I say, I made conversations in the queue, ended up talking to some people, and that was great, and that kicked off until I like spotted some other people that I recognised. But yeah, it's just a bit like, it is a bit nerve-wracking if you're not naturally that kind of person who just talks to strangers, but it's still worth going. It's still worth pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. You're going to learn stuff. You're going to get ideas. You're going to meet new people. You're going to feel inspired and motivated and just energized from the whole thing. I'm also kind of asking myself, like, would I go to something like this if it wasn't so close by? Because part of the thing for me is that it's a no-brainer. It's literally on my doorstep. It's like an international level. Like, there was people coming from Korea and all sorts of places. It's an international level business event on my doorstep. I need to get my fucking arse there. Like, what excuses have I got not to be there? But I have to ask myself, like, would I go further afield for it? I think if it was in the UK, I would. If it was somewhere else in the UK, if it was like Manchester or London or Glasgow or Edinburgh, I probably would get my arse into gear and go. So actually, yes, I would. So if you're not in Newcastle, so if you're not based in Newcastle, perhaps if you're based somewhere else, it's still worth the trip. It is still worth the trip, definitely. More than definitely, like I say, people were coming from all over the country, all over the world, really, to attend this event. So it's worth it from that point of view. But yeah, I hope that's been helpful. When you don't get these opportunities to network in this way and to experience this kind of thing in our industry, I mean, there's nothing that I know of that's coaching specific that is quite like this. Maybe I should set up something that is coaching specific, but this is as close as that's going to get into, in terms of it is about small businesses. It does have a heavy online slant. Not everything is going to be relevant to a B2C coaching business, but a lot of it is. It was just fabulous, basically. So tickets are on sale now for 2024. If anyone wants to go, grab your ticket. They'll get more expensive the closer to the event it comes. I think they were offering a full refund up until March next year. So if you're not quite sure what's going to happen, but you want to get your ticket now, you can get your ticket now and get a full refund closer to the time if you change your mind or if you can't make it. Like I said, they do have an online version of the event as well, so you can buy your ticket and then watch it streamed live. I have an affiliate link, which is going to be in the description. So do check that out if you want to get your ticket and come along. It is just so much fun. It's just really, really, really good fun. If you want to buddy up with me, let me know. Pop me an email, Laura@wholeheartedlylaura, or pop me a DM on Instagram. I'm @wholeheartedlylaura, and I will very happily buddy up and maybe have a little meet up if there's a few of us who are going. That would be incredible as well. So I hope that's been helpful. I've tried to share some of the key giveaways that I've had from that event. I got loads, and like I say, I need to sit and make a list and implement them. That will be helpful. But I really hope that's been useful. I hope it's given you lots of stuff to think about. I hope it's, maybe got you thinking about whether or not you would want to attend an event like this. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. As always, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and I will see you next week, guys. Take care. Bye.